Hello, family, and welcome to Echoed Enigmas. Please subscribe and leave a like for us. It means the world to us. Also, share this video to your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. Tonight's story asks a powerful question. What happens when you ruin a good man? And what happens if that man is the one person you should never have crossed?
Norah Khumalo, CEO of Khumalo Creative, slid the proposal across her mahogany desk with a dismissive sigh. Her assistant, Lerato, stood waiting. Norah said, "Lerato, this is naive. We sell luxury brands to Sandton. An app for minibus taxi logistics? It sounds like something from a spaza shop." But what happened next would unfold a story of consequences that would take years to fully reveal.
Norah Khumalo's office was on the 20th floor, a glass box in the sky that looked down on the frantic energy of Sandton. She was a woman built from the sharp edges of her past. She had clawed her way out of a one-room house in Alexandra, and she wore her success like armor. Every morning, she stood at that window, not to admire the view, but to remind herself how far she was from the dusty streets below. Her world was one of high-stakes pitches, boardroom battles, and the constant, thrumming anxiety of staying on top. Her assistant, Lerato Mokwena, was, in Norah's eyes, a necessary but unremarkable part of the office machinery. Lerato was quiet, efficient, and came from Soweto, a fact Norah filed away as background. One Tuesday morning, Lerato waited until Norah had finished her second espresso. She said, "Ma'am, I know it's not my place, but I have an idea, a pitch." Norah didn't look up from her screen. She said, "Go on." Lerato took a nervous breath. She said, "It's a logistics app, but for the informal market. It uses the existing minibus taxi routes to create a delivery network. People in the townships could send packages, medicine, documents, cheaply. We could call it umoja, unity, connecting the people." Norah finally looked up, her eyes cold. This was the moment she dismissed the idea, the spaza shop comment landing like a slap. Norah said, "Lerato, your job is to manage my schedule, not to dream. Khumalo Creative deals with German cars and French champagne. We do not deal with minibus taxis. Is that clear?" Lerato's face flushed, but she nodded. She said, "Yes, ma'am, understood." She picked up the thin proposal and walked out. But what Norah didn't realize was that she hadn't just dismissed an idea. She had dismissed a vision. Lerato was not just an assistant. She was a daughter of Soweto, a caregiver to her sick Gogo, and she saw the daily struggles that Norah had paid millions to forget. That evening, Norah drove her Mercedes G-Wagon to her sterile, empty penthouse. Her phone buzzed. Theodore, her son. She sighed and silenced the call. She had a major client dinner. She didn't have the energy for his accusations, his constant reminders of the family braais in Pretoria she always missed, his disappointment that she had, in his words, forgotten who she was. Across the city, Lerato got off the crowded taxi in Dipkor, Soweto. She walked into the small, neat house filled with the smell of steam bread. Her grandmother, Gogo Mokwena, was sitting in her chair, her breathing shallow. Gogo Mokwena said, "How was work, my child?" Lerato forced a smile. "It was fine, Gogo. Don't worry." Later that night, as her Gogo slept, Lerato sat at the small kitchen table. The medical bills were piling up.
Nora's dismissal stung, not because of pride, but because the idea was, she believed, a solution. She bowed her head. This was her first prayer. She whispered, "Father God, you gave me this vision. You showed me the need. My boss, she doesn't see. But I trust you. If this is your path, Lord, make a way where there seems to be no way. Give me the strength to build it." A quiet peace settled on her. She opened her old laptop. The screen flickered to life. She created a new folder on the desktop. She typed, "Project Umoja." The first seed had been planted, watered by faith and rejection. It was a beginning, a quiet digital whisper that would one day become a roar.
The next few months at Khumalo Creative were defined by a new predatory threat. Justin Powell. His company, Powell Digital, was aggressive, and he had his sights set on Nora's biggest clients. Norah felt the pressure. She became sharper, more demanding. She called a late-night meeting. She said, "Justin Powell is trying to gut us. He thinks we're old news. We are going to fight back. We will be faster, smarter, and more ruthless. I want ideas, and I want them to be brilliant." A junior designer tentatively suggested a campaign focused on community and connection. Norah shot him down. She said, "No. Aspiration, exclusivity, that is what sells. People want to escape their reality, not be reminded of it." This was her psychological wound speaking. Her entire empire was built on the idea of escape. Lerato watched, silent. She managed Nora's schedule, fetched her dry cleaning, and absorbed her stress. But every night she went home, took care of her gogo, and then, from midnight until 3 in the morning, she coded. She taught herself mobile development from online videos. She mapped out taxi routes. She built the back end of Umoja. Her subplot was one of exhausted resilience. She was living 2 lives, the subservient assistant by day and the innovative CEO by night. The tension in Nora's life finally boiled over, not in the boardroom, but at a family gathering. Her son, Theodore, had practically dragged her to a relative's braai in Pretoria. It was the first time she'd been in months. She stood awkwardly by the fire, her designer dress smelling of smoke, clutching a glass of wine. Theodore approached her. He wasn't angry anymore. He was just sad. Theodore said, "You look so uncomfortable, Ma." Norah stiffened. "I'm busy, Theo. You know that." Theodore said, "Are you, or are you just ashamed of us, of this? We're still your family. This is still where you come from." And right there, beside the crackling fire, came the flashback. Norah was suddenly 8 years old, standing outside her school in Alexandra. The other children were laughing, pointing at her bare feet. Her father had lost his job. There was no money for shoes. She remembered the burning, agonizing shame. She had sworn that day, never again. Never again would she be weak. Never again would she be the one who had nothing. She snapped back to the present. She looked at her son with hard eyes. She said, "You know nothing about my life. You've had everything handed to you. Don't you dare judge me." She left the braai, leaving Theodore alone by the fire. The choice that would echo for years. She had chosen her pride over her son. Back in Sandton, her phone rang. It was her lawyer. Her lawyer said, "Norah, we have a problem. Justin Powell isn't just poaching clients. He's made an offer." Norah gripped the phone. "What offer?" The lawyer said,
He's made a formal hostile offer to the board to buy Kumalo Creative. And Norah, it's a lowball. He knows we're bleeding. He thinks he can break
The
you.
hostile takeover bid sent Norah into a frenzy. She declared war. She lived at the office, fueled by coffee and rage. She mortgaged her penthouse to buy back stock, trying to consolidate her power. She was cold, volatile, and isolated. She said to her team, "Failure is not an option. We will bury Justin Powell." But Justin was a different kind of predator. He didn't play by the rules. While Norah was busy with lawyers, Justin was busy with espionage. He had a mole inside her company. He found out about her pitch for the massive account that would save her company, a new luxury car brand. Just when peace seemed possible, the mole leaked her entire strategy to Powell Digital. 2 days before the presentation, Justin Powell pitched Norah's own concept back to the client and won the account. Norah found out via an email. The loss was catastrophic. It wasn't just a client, it was the lifeline. The company was now financially ruined. She was staring at bankruptcy. That same week, Lerato's world was also collapsing. Her gogo's health took a sudden, severe turn. She was rushed to Baragwanath Hospital. The doctors said she needed immediate, expensive surgery. She stood in the cold, sterile hallway, her heart breaking. She had no money. She had only her unfinished app. She had been invited to a small local tech incubation hub in Maboneng to present her idea, but she had been too afraid. Now she had no choice. This was her second prayer. She sat on a bench in the hospital, tears streaming down her face. She opened the small Bible she carried in her bag. Her fingers fell on a verse. Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. A fire lit in her. It was not the fire of rage like Norah's. It was the fire of desperate faith. She said, "Amen. Okay, Lord, I hear you. I will do it for Gogo, for Umoja." She called Norah's office. She said, "I'm sorry, I have a family emergency. I need to take the rest of the week as unpaid leave." Norah's replacement assistant, a temp, replied, "Fine, whatever." Norah didn't even know she was gone. The next day, 2 women stood on 2 different cliffs. Norah stood in her 20th floor office, staring at a final notice from the bank. The company was going into liquidation. It was over. The armor was broken. Miles away, in a crowded, buzzing warehouse in Maboneng, Lerato Mokrena, in her simple dress, stood on a small stage. Her hands were shaking. She looked at the panel of local and international investors. She took a deep breath, pictured her gogo's face, and began. She said, "Good afternoon. My name is Lerato Nokwena. I am here today to talk about the backbone of our economy, the minibus taxi. And I am here to show you how we can use it to change the way our communities connect. I call it Umoja." Lerato spoke for 10 minutes. She didn't use the slick corporate language of Sandton. She spoke from the heart. She spoke of her gogo needing medicine. She spoke of the small business owner in Alexandria trying to send goods to a customer in Soweto. She spoke of connection, of Ubuntu. When she finished, there was a silence. Then a woman at the back of the room, an international venture capitalist from Nigeria, started to clap. Slowly, the entire room joined. After the presentation, the investor approached her. The investor said, "That is not a spaza shop idea, my dear. That is a R1 billion revolution. How much do you need?" Lerato's life changed in that instant. Norah's life was changing too. The liquidators were merciless. They seized the office, the mahogany desk, the art, the espresso machine, all of it gone. She lost the penthouse. She lost the G-Wagon. She was forced to move into a small rented townhouse in 4 ways with only her personal savings to live on. The fall was brutal, and it was public. Justin Powell's company put out a press release. Powell Digital absorbs key assets of failed Khumalo Creative. He had won. For a month, Norah did not leave the townhouse. The shame she had run from her entire life had finally caught her. She was back where she started, with nothing. One night, surrounded by packing boxes, she truly broke. The pride shattered, leaving only the raw wound beneath. She fell to her knees, a sound of pure anguish tearing from her throat. This was her first prayer in 30 years. She sobbed, "God, if you are there, look at me. Look at what I've become. I built my house on sand, on pride. I mocked the humble. I pushed away my son. I have nothing. Lord, I have nothing. Please, I don't know how, but help me. Forgive me." It was not a prayer for wealth. It was a prayer for mercy. A few days later, there was a knock on her door. It was Theodore. He had heard what happened. He didn't say, "I told you so." He just looked at his mother, smaller than he had ever seen her, and his heart broke. He stepped inside and held her as she cried. He said, "It's okay, Ma. It's okay. We'll figure it out." It was the beginning of a different kind of building. Time. Time is the great teacher. 6 months passed. Norah started taking small freelance consulting jobs. It was humbling. She was working from her kitchen table. She was rebuilding her relationship with Theodore. He came over for dinner. They talked, really talked, for the first time. One afternoon, she received an email. It was a formal request for a consultation meeting. The email read, "Dear Miss Khumalo, we are impressed by your past portfolio. We are a new logistics company looking to expand our corporate marketing division. We would like to schedule a meeting." Norah's heart leapt. A real client, a big one. She looked at the company name at the bottom of the email. Umoja Logistics, Incorporated. She frowned. The name was vaguely familiar, but she couldn't place it. She just felt a flicker of hope. She ironed her last good suit and confirmed the meeting.
The address for Umoja Logistics was not in Sandton. It was in a massive brand new tech campus in Midrand. Norah took an Uber, a humbling experience in itself. She walked into the lobby. It was vast, open, and buzzing with energy. Young, brilliant minds were everywhere. The walls were covered in murals depicting taxi routes and community. She was led to the top floor, to the CEO's office. The door opened. Norah stepped inside. The office was huge, with a glass wall overlooking the campus. And sitting behind a large modern desk was a woman. She looked up, and her warm, familiar smile hit Norah like a physical blow. It was Lerato Mokena. Norah froze. The world tilted. This was impossible. Lerato, her quiet, mousy assistant, in this office. Lerato stood up. She was dressed in an elegant, modern African print dress. The humility was still there, but it was now overlaid with a quiet, unshakable authority. Lerato said, "Norah, thank you for coming. Please, sit down." Norah's legs felt weak. She sank into the chair. She couldn't speak. Her mind was racing. The app, the minibus taxis, Umoja. Lerato poured 2 glasses of water, her hand perfectly steady. Lerato said, "It's been a long time. I hear things have been difficult. I was sorry to hear about Kumalo Creative." Norah finally found her voice, a dry whisper. "Lerato, what? How?" Lerato sat down. She said, "After my gogo got sick, I pitched the idea you rejected. The investors, they saw its potential. We launched 6 months ago. We've just secured our 2nd round of funding. We are valued at over 2 billion rand." Norah stared, her mind unable to process the numbers. 2 billion. Lerato continued, her voice gentle, not boastful. "My gogo got her surgery. She lives with me now, in Waterfall. The app, Norah, it's working. We are helping thousands of small businesses. We are helping gogos get their medicine. It's connecting the people, just as I'd hoped." And then the callback, the words that would echo in Norah's mind forever. Lerato said, "You told me it sounded like something from a spaza shop. You were right in a way. That's why it worked. It was for the spaza shops. It was for the people you worked so hard to leave behind." The truth of it landed. It was not an accusation. It was a fact. Norah looked at this woman, this giant who she had mocked. She saw the full scale of her own arrogance, her own blindness. She saw the divine justice, the karma laid out before her. Justin Powell, she had heard, was now under investigation for corporate espionage after his mole confessed. His empire was crumbling. She had a choice. She could run. She could let the last vestiges of her pride curdle into bitterness, or she could surrender. Tears welled in Norah's eyes, not tears of self-pity, but tears of genuine remorse. She looked Lerato in the eye. She said, I am so sorry, Lerato. I was a fool. I was blind. My fear, my pride, it cost me everything. What you have built, it's a miracle. You are a better woman than I ever was." Lerato smiled, a sad, compassionate smile. She said, "God is a good strategist, Norah. He knows how to humble the proud, and he knows how to lift the humble." She leaned forward. "I didn't call you here to gloat, and I didn't call you here for a consultation." Norah looked confused. "Then, why am I here?" Lerato said, "Umoja Logistics is growing. We need infrastructure. We need experienced marketing minds. My board has authorized me to make an offer to acquire the remaining assets and name of Kumalo Creative. We want to relaunch it as our in-house agency." Norah was stunned. "You want to buy my company? What's left of it?" Lerato said, "Yes. The offer is generous. It would clear your debts and leave you with a significant sum. And it comes with a condition." "What condition?" Norah whispered. "That you come with it. I am offering you a position, Norah, as head of strategy. You would be reporting to me."
There it was, the final test, the ultimate humiliation or the ultimate redemption. Norah Kumalo, the Queen of Sandton, was being offered a job by her former assistant to work in the company built on the very idea she had mocked. The old Norah would have spat. She would have stormed out, preferring bankruptcy to such an indignity. But this was a new Norah, a broken Norah, a humbled Norah. She thought of her son, Theodore,
her lonely townhouse, and her prayer on the floor, asking for a way. She looked at Lerato, who waited with patient grace and silently whispered, "Thank you, God. I see. I finally see." She took a deep breath, and for the first time in her adult life, she chose humility. She nodded, tears falling freely now, and said, "Lerato, Miss Mokoena, I would be honored. I accept." Lerato smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. She stood up and held out her hand. "Welcome to Umoja, Norah." 6 months later, in a bright office at the Umoja campus, Norah led a meeting with a group of young, eager interns from Alexandra and Soweto. She was patient, she was kind, she listened. "That's a good idea, Sipo, but let's think about who we are serving. Let's think from their perspective." Theodore walked in, holding a takeaway bag, and smiled. "Ready for lunch, Ma?" Norah smiled back, genuinely and warmly. "I am. Let's go." They didn't go to a Sandton bistro. Instead, they drove to a small, beloved restaurant in Soweto, not far from Lerato's old house. They sat at an outdoor table, eating kota, and talked about their week. Norah was at peace. She had lost an empire built on pride, but she had gained her soul and her son. And in the CEO's office, Lerato Mokoena looked over her expanding campus. She was the new face of African innovation, but she still packed her own lunch, still went home to her gogo, and still began every board meeting with a prayer of thanks, remembering the lesson that the ideas God gives us are often disguised as the very things the world tells us to despise, and that the stone the builders rejected can, indeed, become the cornerstone.
Pride, family, is a dangerous mirror. It shows us only what we want to see and hides the blessings that God sends in humble packages. Norah had to lose everything she thought she wanted to gain the one thing she truly needed: peace. Lerato shows us that when your vision is rooted in faith and service, it can move mountains and it can change the world, one taxi at a time. What did you learn from this story? Drop your thoughts in the comment section. At what point did you realize Norah's pride came from a place of deep pain? And what do you think of Lerato's final decision to hire her old boss? That's the end of the story. What did you learn from this story? Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Leave a like and don't forget to subscribe and turn on post notification so that you'll be notified whenever we drop our next videos. Also, share this video to someone who might be interested. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Echoed Enigmas, where Africa's stories find their voice and where every lesson learned becomes wisdom earned.